Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Dutra, and this is our Blackstone Valley.
It has come to our attention that a mysterious force is loose somewhere in outer space.
The mysteries of creation are there.
Up in the sky?
Up in the sky.
The moon and the planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we cover some news, I wanted to send a special shout out to everybody watching at the Valley Tavern. I hope you enjoy the show. Here's our mission statement for a not-for-profit I helped start here in Northbridge. It's called Our Northbridge. The mission statement is, first off, feed the children. Not just food, knowledge. Make our town the pride of the Blackstone Valley in primary and secondary education. Secondly, clean up the streets. Not just litter, the economic challenges in the commons of Whitensville and in Rockdale, and help establish a park and recreation department to protect and improve our public spaces. Lastly, fire the bad actors. Find out who is responsible for the challenges we currently face in town, and then replace them. Furthermore, establish term limits for elected officials so it never happens again. If you'd like to be involved with us, please text me or call me at 401-486-6894 or message me on Facebook. Our first story tonight is on taking a knee, why are NFL players protesting, and when did they start to kneel? Critics say that sports should be clear of politics, but athletes have used their platform to protest before. This was originally covered by Clark Mindick of The Independent. After a wave of players joined in on American football player Colin Kaepernick's protest movement against police brutality last year, morphing the protest into somewhat of a direct resistance against President Trump after he weighed in on the issue, the NFL has now announced that teams will be fined if players take a knee during the national anthem. The contentious move to take a knee during the national anthem before a game or stand locked in arms in silent protest follows in a long tradition of sports stars standing up for what they believe in to be right. But some charge it as unpatriotic and that politics should be kept out of sports. Here's what you need to know. Kaepernick's protest first occurred 21 months ago, but was not immediately noticed. At that point, he simply sat on the bench during the U.S. national anthem during a preseason game, just next to some giant Gatorade jugs. But later, he transitioned to taking a knee in protest, saying he was doing so to show more respect for military veterans after meeting with a former service member, a veteran who got published in the Military Times commenting on it. It turned out to be a much more iconic pose. Several other players joined in on the protest, even though they received a lot of criticism from football fans who said that this was disrespectful to the United States. Still, the movement did not gain huge traction that year. I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. Kaepernick said this in a press conference after first sitting out the anthem. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. What is the context surrounding those first protests? Police brutality has become an incredibly polarizing and contentious issue in American life. This has come as a result of repeated videos showing police shooting and killing unarmed black men, which have been posted online and gone viral, illustrating the brutality that black people in America must contend with when dealing with some police officers, who often do not serve any prison time for pulling the trigger. Why is this gaining steam now? President Trump became a catalyst for the protest in September when he said during a campaign rally in Alabama that he wished that NFL players would be fired for kneeling during the national anthem. He can be quoted saying, "Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, saying, 'Get that son of a off the field right now, he's fired'?" President Trump said, "You know, some owner's going to do that. He's going to say, 'That guy disrespects our flag, he's fired.' And that owner, they don't know it, but they'll be the most popular person in the country." Obviously, after an inflammatory quote like that, things only began to get worse. Who is protesting? Some football teams chose not to come out on the field after all of President Trump's comments, while other teams allowed their players to protest at their own discretion. In addition to most, if not all, of the NFL teams seeing some players protesting the weekend after President Trump's September remarks, baseball professionals and basketball professionals also joined in. Notably, Patriots quarterback Tom Brady called President Trump's comments divisive and locked arms with his teammates during the game following the president's remarks. Brady has remained mostly silent about President Trump, whom he has called a friend in the past. Why exactly is this such a big deal for people? President Trump charges that kneeling during the national anthem is disrespectful to American servicemen and women, which he is not one of other than being the commander-in-chief right now. He's never served one day, just as a point, as do many of his supporters. The White House has repeatedly attempted to rebrand the protest as a protest of the American flag instead of against police brutality and racism and oppression overall in the United States. After Kaepernick first started the protest, he was criticized for introducing politics into sports. Many said that football was somehow sacrosanct and that it should be a place where people can rise above politics. But is it abnormal for sports stars to make their political opinions known during events? No, not really. There's a rich history in American sports stars wading into the political sphere. For instance, John Carlos and Tommy Smith made headlines across the world when they raised the Black Power salute on the podium after winning in the 1968 Olympics. That protest brought them death threats, and they were expelled from the games. Muhammad Ali is perhaps one of the best-known American athletes to take a major political stand. While not a direct stand against racism, Ali refused to be drafted into the Vietnam War, a refusal that involved jail time. He did so on basis of his personal faith. He said, but he did note the cruel irony of asking black men to serve in Vietnam for a country that has treated them as subhuman. More recently, NBA players like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and others helped the Black Lives Matter movement pick up steam by wearing supportive shirts following the death of Eric Garner, who was choked to death in New York. So what is the new NFL rule? NFL owners unanimously approved the new national anthem policy this week, requiring players to stand if they are on the field during the performance of the song. Players do have the option to remain in the locker room during the anthem if they prefer. If a player or other employee of a team kneels or sits during the anthem, the teams themselves are fined. The teams then have the option to fine the individual players or personnel for the infraction. The vote was unanimous, but the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, the team Kaepernick played for when he started the protest, abstained from the vote. The rule will be added to the NFL's game operations manual and will therefore not be subject to collective bargaining agreements. The NFL Players Association has said it will review the policy and challenge any aspect of the rule that, if it does in fact violating the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the employees. So what happened to Colin Kaepernick? Kaepernick is not currently on any NFL team, even though many of his supporters argue that he is good enough to be picked up by a team. He has said himself that he is ready to play if any team is willing to hire him. But while Kaepernick is out of his NFL job, he has remained busy with charity work. That includes a $1 million pledge he has made to charitable organizations, which has included support for a variety of groups. Kaepernick has largely refused to comment on the most recent NFL protest and has refrained from responding to President Trump's criticism of the protest movement he started as unpatriotic. What does this all mean for you at home? This is a form of protest and civil disobedience. And it is my opinion we should try to support the players doing this to show solidarity. What is civil disobedience? Civil disobedience is the refusal to comply with certain laws or to pay taxes or fines as a peaceful form of political protest. Many people in history have been part of civil disobedience to bring about awareness and change where they see injustice. People like Rosa Parks, David Richmond, and Phil Radford. Rosa Parks was not protesting the bus. David Richmond was not protesting the lunch counter. Phil Radford was not protesting cranes. Colin Kaepernick was not protesting the flag or our national anthem. Furthermore, anyone who's ever watched him play knows he's good enough to play and should be able to. He is certainly better than half the quarterbacks in the NFL and greatly outpaces the bottom of the QBs in the NFL. He's certainly better than the game manager Trevor Siemian in Denver or the huge rookie disappointment Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago. And lastly, Just like with the bus and the lunch counter and climate change protests, they will only get stronger and more vocal until they are heard and their grievances dealt with. I'm Mike Dutra. This is our Blackstone Valley. We'll be right back.
The wisest person I ever met in my life, a third grade dropout. Wisest and dropout in the same sentence is rather oxymoronic.